電車で GO!
The PlayStation 2 redefined gaming. Much like the original PlayStation, Sony's second system ushered in a new era, setting the standards for what is possible in video games. Still the best-selling console of all time, a title which looks to be safe for this generation, 160 million units were sold in its 14-year lifespan. While the launch lineup was famously bad, over time it was home to franchises that had started out on the PlayStation, and hosted a slew of original IPs, many of which saw follow-ups on the PlayStations 3, 4 and 5. At launch, the hype for next-gen Final Fantasy, Metal Gear Solid, Dragon Quest and Gran Turismo games was massive, based on what the PS2 and its mighty Emotion Engine chip could offer. It helped usher in the DVD age by pulling double duty as a games machine and a means of watching DVDs. DVD movies came labelled as PS2 compatible, further cementing the idea of the PS2 as a viable DVD player, even if the quality was not on par with a dedicated DVD unit. Backwards compatibility meant your existing catalogue of games and peripherals would still work on the new hardware, and those starting out with a PS2 had access to thousands of amazing last-gen titles now at budget prices. In time there would be network and hard drive support, and even an evolution into a set-top box allowing users to play games and digitally record TV broadcasts, really leaning into the multi-role aspect of the PlayStation 2. We'll never see the like again. PS3's poor launch stacked Sony's winning streak, and while successive releases in the PlayStation line have sold well, they have not had the same impact on gaming culture as the first two. And now that the PS4 and 5 and the Xbox series are simply PCs packed into novelty cases, homogenized gaming is all we have left to look forward to. But never mind the now. How was Taito's first foray into train simming with the mighty Emotion Engine?
Densha de GO 3通勤編 PlayStation 2で出発です。
Taito?
Densha de GO 3 launched a year into the PS2's life. A direct port of the arcade game, it bears all the associated features. Slavish adherence to the arcade machine's increased difficulty and credit-based gameplay times. Minimal adjustment for the home user, but some entertaining bonus content and Pocket Station support. However, for many rail fans at the time, this was all they wanted. That and the cutting-edge, almost arcade-perfect graphics. The arcade game actually had two releases. There was the initial Densha de GO 3 and a tweaked edition with the subheading Timetable Revision. This update removed some of the unpopular timetables, but as it was rolled out at the same time as the next arcade installment, Ganbare Untenshi, so very few arcade operators took the upgrade and went for the new iteration instead. Timetable Revision also failed to make it to the PS2 version of the game, but the changes were implemented for the PC version. Like Densha de GO 2 with its High Speed Edition subheading, Densha de GO 3's full title is Densha de GO 3 Tsukin Hen, or Let's Go by Train Commuter Edition. And while the predecessor Densha de GO 2 introduced us to the world of high-speed express train routes, Dengo 3 brings us back down to earth with the mundane day-to-day travel. To me, this causes a feeling of ambivalence. On one hand, this is the aspect where Densha de GO really shines. I mentioned in the video for Densha de GO 1 that the appeal for Japanese gamers was the ability to drive the routes they took to school and work. In Dengo 3, Taito doubled down on this, but at the same time it's showing almost no ambition. Dengo 1 had the novelty of being an arcade train sim. Dengo 2 introduced high-speed rail and the Shinkansen. Nagoya offered a look into the world of private rail, tram and monorail, while Kisha took us back to the days of steam locomotion. The gimmick of commuter-based stages does clip the wings of the series, but the inclusion of interesting locomotives does go some way to elevate this from being a generic selection of 2001 era trains running on JR's most frequented lines. Speaking of lines, Densha de GO 3 arranges its track selection into three sections: Kyushu, Kanto and Kinki. Quick geography roundup: Kyushu is the southern island hanging off the end of mainland Japan. Available routes for this region include the Kagoshima line between Futsukaichi and Hakata, and the Sasaguri line between Sasaguri and Hakata. The Kagoshima line especially is a vital commuting line in Kyushu, in that it connects major cities and urban areas along its route, as well as major rail hub Kokura Station, which gives access to Shinkansen travel and the Kita-Kyushu monorail. Kanto can be described as the centre of Japan, containing Tokyo, Chiba, Saitama, Tochigi, Gunma, Kanagawa, and Ibaraki prefectures. The lines on offer here are set in central Tokyo, the Chuo line and the Sobu line. The Sobu line is the local train that stops at all stations between Chiba and Mitaka in Tokyo. In-game, the route runs from Shinjuku, the de facto heart of Tokyo, to Akihabara. Chuo-sen translates to Central Line and cuts through central Tokyo horizontally. The line starts at Tokyo Station and terminates at Takao Station. In-game, we start again at Shinjuku and end at Tokyo Station, only stopping at Yotsuya, Ochanomizu, Kanda, and finally Tokyo. These lines operate on the same stretch of track, separating at Ochanomizu. And finally, Kinki lies somewhere in the middle of the previous two areas, containing Kyoto, Osaka and Nara, among others. Here we get two easily confused lines. The classic San-in main line, a line featured in the very first Densha de GO game that was included as the director, Saito Akira, was very familiar with it, having grown up in Kyoto. And the San-yo main line. The San-in runs from Kameoka to Kyoto in-game, while the San-yo runs between Kobe and Nishi-Akashi. Both of these lines feature Kyoto Station as a major hub. Unusually, the Keihin Tohoku and the Yamanote lines do not feature in this game. Every prior installment has featured the Keihin Tohoku line, except Nagoya, and this game having Commuter Edition for a subheading only to omit one of the biggest commuting routes in Japan is really strange. I can only assume that Taito were worried that fans were getting bored of it. Yamanote's omission is no surprise, as it has been cut out of a few games already. There are 13 trains available to drive, mostly consisting of commonplace commuter trains, some of which feature in more than one location. In Kyushu there are 787 series, 811 series, 813 series, Kiha 58, Kiha 66, Kiha 72 and Kiha 200 series trains. The Kiha series are all diesel engines perfectly suited to those super rural non-electrified railroads, which even in 2001 were becoming quite rare. Of note are the Kiha 72 and 787 series trains. The 787 is a sleek train designed for limited express routes across Kyushu. The design differences between the local trains looking like planters on wheels and the suggestion of speed in the limited express's design is striking. The diesel-powered Kiha 72, despite its looks, was a new train when Densha de GO 3 was released. The upper deck as seen here is for passengers to take in these sights between hot springs and tourist hotspots from Hakata to Yufuin. It's still running today if you fancy a train tour with a difference due to its incongruous design and delightful all-wood interior. There is a link in the description. Interestingly, the Kiha 58 and 66 are the same train on the same track with a different skin. Pressing select on the train menu cycles between the two trains. Kanto has the most wonderfully generic mix of borderline identical commuter trains going. The 201 series, twice, the 205 and 209 series trains. The 201s were the default train for a lot of commuter lines in the 1990s, having been in use since the late 70s. They ran up to the early 2000s until the 209 series replaced them. It's on this menu screen where we can see the differences between the Sobu and Chuo lines. The colours. The Sobu line is bright yellow and the Chuo line is orange. These are still the official colours to this day. The Kinki region has 6 trains. The 201 series, 205 series, 207 series, 221 series and 223 series. And the Kiha 58 again. Again, we can see the design distinction between local and express train designs for the 221 and 223 series. I talked earlier about how much of a hindrance the Commuter Edition tagline is. There are remarkably few trains of note in this selection, with the only exception to commuting being the Kiha 72. It's so strange, it's like the next Gran Turismo game featuring only budget hatchbacks. It would have its fans but would undoubtedly be seen as a road to nowhere. On the road to the game, however, we have the title screen with higher resolution images of trains, including this one of the Kiha 58 as seen on the cover of Densha de GO Driver Training Manual. From here we hop into the main menu where there are 5 options: a duty of driving train, a material haul of train, game setup, load and save, and rankings. Skipping to step 3, we have game setup with the standard choices for controller binds. Of course, this only applies to the standard controller, and whether you wanted to emulate a 2 or 1 handle train control. Difficulty, speedo, distance meter type, screen size and position, and finally rumble strength. Next up on the main menu is the load and save options. Autosave is included, but you will still be pestered about saving at every available opportunity, so it makes little difference. And Pocket Station support is making a comeback with what is essentially the same game as seen on Nagoya and Densha de GO. And finally, there is the opportunity to check out your rankings on the runs you've attempted so far. This is the only way to discern what routes you've driven. Unlike previous games in the series, there are no markings on the route screens to indicate which runs you have finished. Again, I don't understand this. It's such a simple oversight and an easy fix for the home market. Bring back the colour-coded stars to show our progression. I'm not asking for a full-on campaign mode, although now I think about it, that would be pretty incredible. Start out life on a crappy rural run until you gain enough XP to upgrade to inner city lines and eventually a Shinkansen driver. Someone, Taito, I don't care, make this happen. A material haul of train is much like the previous games in the series with options for photos, 3D models, FMV and sounds. No descriptions for the photos this time, just albums sorted by a region. No unlockables either, unlike the 3D model floor, which has a small selection of trains at the start with more unlocking as you pass trains in-game and for finishing runs. And it's not just trains, there are NPCs to look at too, and a few hidden surprises. The movie floor shows you FMV unlocked by completing runs. These are really nice and show the power of the PS2's video playback. And finally, there is the sound floor where you can listen to music, voice recordings, and sound effects. Hopping into the main game, we have a choice to make. Do we go for family mode, where speed and time limits are cast aside in favour of a fun run for all the family?
Good for them.
Or do we go for the game mode, the standard Densha de GO experience we've played before?
Good for them.
But what if you're not a massive softie? What if you want to torture yourself? Well, my friends, the Iron Man mode is for you. This is a difficult version of the game for the brave of heart. No distance gauge, the braking setting is obscured, no early warnings for speed changes, eye-watering penalties for missing a signal or speeding, and a fairly unforgiving stopping window. But while the penalties are severe, doing well greatly rewards the player. A decent stop in this mode can net you up to 15 seconds. Conversely, any overrun will cost you at least 5. This may be a bit hyperbolic, it is harder for sure and can be made even harder by changing the difficulty settings in the menu. But I have to say, it really does work as a concept and it makes you a better driver. It was with some trepidation that I tried this mode. The missing distance gauge is really confusing and necessitates a deeper knowledge of the routes. But it does force you to pay more attention to the feeling of speed instead of watching your speedo. Bringing your train to an unguided stop at the market is fantastically satisfying, and the bonus points are really generous. My advice, play this mode but stick to the Sobu and Chuo lines. The short gaps between stations make this mode fairly easy, with the routine being accelerate to 65, coast to station limits, brake 4 to 6 to around 20 km an hour, then bring yourself to a nice timely stop at the diamond. There is another reason to try Iron Man mode. It contains the 2 bonus games. There are no bonus games in the standard Densha de GO or family mode, so if you want to try these out, there's only one way. The 2 games are Speed Management and Horn Honking. Speed Management gives you a target speed, and you are tasked with making sure that your train is doing that speed when it passes the stop marker. The catch? No speedo. You have to eyeball it. It is pretty tricky, but again the rewards are very decent. Get the speed spot on and you'll grab 20 seconds of waiting time. For every kilometre an hour you're off, you're docked 4 seconds. Failing doesn't cost you anything though. You can adjust your speed with the master controller and brakes, but even tapping the emergency brake will cost you waiting time. The other bonus game is Horn Honking. Go on, have a guess at what this entails. That's right, you have to honk your horn at people standing too close to the edge of the platform. There are 10 people who need parking, and your score is based on how close you are to the errant would-be passenger when you honked. Getting the timing right, whatever that is, I have no clue, bags you 2 bonus seconds of waiting time. Getting it kind of right gets you 1, but mistiming a honk costs you a second from your bonus time. So again, at least you aren't being punished for playing these games. The bonus game you get is decided by the timetable you choose. Both of these runs were recorded on the Sobu line, with the only difference being the 209 and 205 trains. I have put the specific timetables for each game in the on-screen diagram. So yeah, game mode gets no such treats, which is a shame as it's not an easy game. The navigator for some reason has been removed, and instead speed changes are flashed on screen shortly before the limit is introduced on the track. I have a theory on this. I think the developers may have thought the increased graphical fidelity and increased draw distance precluded the need for the navigator. Railside signage is much easier to read even on a fuzzy CRT, and the speed limit signs are legible from a fair distance. Much more likely, however, is that this is an arcade game and the navigator would be too much of an aid to players. Also, generous stopping distance bonuses have been removed and the distance between great and good stops has shrunk. 2 seconds and 1 metre either side will no longer bag you a bonus. But to be fair, the bonuses you do gain are significantly higher, so the reward for stopping well is really worth it. And these stack, so repeated accurate stops boost your waiting time considerably. Another way to win or lose waiting time is the returning station pass-through system, which awards you with bonus time for passing stations according to the schedule and takes away time for being late. At the end of a run, you're given a much more thorough analysis of your driving. Timetable accuracy, stopping accuracy, braking and passenger comfort, obeying signals, safety, mileage and waiting time. These last 2 are new and refer to how many miles you've covered, which is reduced if you've had to use a continue, and how much waiting time you have left, which is added to your overall score. After the credits have rolled, you can enter your name into the rankings table, but have a look at that. There is a code and a link to taito.co.jp. You could enter your code into the Taito website and pit your performance against other den-goers. This is so cool. But I wonder if someone just worked out the sequence of letters and numbers and submitted a bogus code. There is a lot going on in this entry. It's not a bad looking game. The strange mix of animated polygon passengers and incredibly blocky pre-rendered station dwellers is a bit odd, but it's nice to see some life on the platform. Except for when they delay your departure. Adding further jeopardy to your waiting time, passengers can dash onto your train at the last second and get bags, briefcases or limbs stuck in the door, delaying your departure by a second or more. These lovely folk also appear in the model floor of the material hall of train. Oh, and as you approach the station stop marker, keep an eye out for passengers waiting too close to the platform edge. Give them a beep with the horn. This will contribute to your safety ranking at the end of a run. Trackside detail is getting really good with signage and a stack of different building types and textures. The skybox is insanely blurry though. It looks worse than the PS1 era. CRT blur does cover a lot, but still. The fake billboards for hotels and businesses are great. Saito is regularly seen on rooftops as a nod to the original game designer Akira Saito. Oncoming trains look fantastic, and while some effort has been put into getting moving cars on roads, it's usually just one car moving alongside a few stationary vehicles. Weather is back with real-time changes instead of the weather suddenly turning while you're inside a station. The handling difference is entirely reasonable though. I did not feel like any of the trains required anything particularly drastic when it came to stopping in the rain. And speaking of real time, you can select the time of day for your run. This is absolutely incredible because, as you may have heard me in previous videos, I bloody love evening and night runs. Cannot get enough. Every route in this game can be set to morning, afternoon, evening, night and real time. And there are differences. The morning and evening runs are a little more sluggish due to the rush hour commuters, while afternoon and night are a bit easier. Real time simply looks at the clock in your PS2 and sets the route accordingly. There are a few negatives though, the biggest being the inability to reset your run. All Dengo games to this point have allowed you to quit or return to the starting station from the pause menu. Not so this time, you have to go all the way back to the Taito logo and start again. This is a poor show. What makes it absolutely unforgivable though is the loading times. Man alive, we were pretty spoiled in the PS1. Here there are loading screens just to load up menus. Loading times to get into the game, loading times between stations. Going from an instant restart to a 1 minute cycle of resetting, choosing to load and save ranking data, choosing game mode, choosing route, waiting for it to load, it's absolutely insane. It's effective in that you absolutely dread failing with every fibre in your being and having to go through all that. But it's a real pain in the ass when you're just starting out and learning the routes. What else is there to say? Alongside Dengo 3, a new controller was released, the Type 2, a Mascon with pilot light, vibration function and an additional foot pedal for the horn. It's very nice and feels like the logical culmination of the Mascon controller. This will get its own sidetracked video in good time. One thing I noticed during the research for this video is, Densha de GO is no longer extensively promoted in magazines. There was a time when a Dengo game would get a 2-page spread advert early on in a mag. 1, 2, 64, Pro, Nagoya, they all got printed periodical promotions, but I've yet to find anything for Densha de GO 3's home release. I've scoured endless Famitsu's, Dengekis and Zap PlayStation mags, but found very little. There was a feature in Dengeki PlayStation issue 171 and a cross review in 172, but not much else. There was a television commercial that aired on Japanese TV which is pretty fun. A platform full of expectant commuters, one of which brings out his measuring tape to gauge the distance from the stopping point. It's not a perfect zero, so the commuters await the next train. There is another advert that just jump cuts between real life footage of the Chuo Line train and the same train in game.
Densha de GO 3通勤編 PlayStation 2で出発です
Taito.
So where are we going to put this in our tier list? I reckon this is an easy B. It looks good, it has a decent selection of routes and some fun new playstyles. I did consider dumping this way down into the D's or E's due to the no restart nonsense, but the extra materials and unlockables elevate Dengo 3 above the level of being a mere port. As do the animated polygonal commuters. It's great to see people moving along the platform waiting for their train. There's life on the tracks now. While the feeling of being a train driver whose passengers exclusively consist of cardboard cutouts will be missed, I think I like the way this is going. Agree, disagree? is this actually way better than I give it credit for? On some Japanese gaming forums and databases, Dengo 3 is met with a lot of derision. Have to say, I think they're a little too harsh on it. I did have a lot of fun with the game.
Good foray.
So that will just about do us for this episode. Join me next time for another thematic entry with Densha de GO Shinkansen Sanyo Shinkansen Edition on the Sony PlayStation 2. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you at the next station.